Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies.
What I think she's saying is you shouldn't be suing companies privately for vaccines that you're also regulating as HHS. There's a conflict there.
Where you said the following, and I quote, "We should not be giving black people the same vaccine schedule that's given to whites because their immune system is better than ours."
There's differences in reaction to different products by different races.
So I have 17 seconds left. Let me just ask you then. So what different vaccine schedule would you say I should have received?
Thank you for your decades-long advocacy for a clean environment, for children's health. I can't say as I'm surprised by the hostility on the other side. I'm highly disappointed in it. I don't know if you remember when you called me up and you were contemplating setting your political differences aside, joining forces with President Trump on an area of agreement, addressing chronic illness, trying to find the root cause of all these problems facing this nation. My first response was, Bobby, this is an answer to my prayers. We need to get to the answers of this, but even more, we need to heal and unify this divided nation. I'm not necessarily the most optimistic guy because we've got enormous challenges facing this nation, but I thought, wow, here's somebody from the left, somebody I don't agree with on many issues politically, coming together with President Trump and focusing on an area of agreement, something that the American people desperately want. Finding out the answers. What has caused autism? What is causing chronic illness? Ms. Kennedy, I think I've come to know what's in your heart. I think I know the personal and political price you've paid for this decision.
What a show. What a fucking performance.
I want to say publicly, I thank you for that. I truly appreciate what you're doing here. Can't we come together as a nation and do this? Can we do? Aren't you getting tired of this? I'm getting tired of this.
Trying to get a response from the crowd there, it seems, and you got your one response. You fuck. You're not getting another round of claps. I don't think. Maybe he does, but.
So again, Mr. Kennedy, I need to enter in the record. These are just 11 letters of support signed by 63,000 people, thousands of doctors, from the American Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, Independent Medical Alliance, the North Carolina Physicians and Freedom Group, Governor Jeff Landry from Louisiana. These are Americans, nonpartisan. A lot of these people I know because I've advocated with you. A lot of them are Democrats. They put their political differences aside. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter this in the record.
Without objection.
I also do want to, Mr. Kennedy, as long as I have you here, I've written over 70 oversight letters to the federal health agencies under the Biden administration. I've virtually gotten squat out of them. Okay, what I get is we get, for example, 50 pages of Anthony Fauci's emails redacted. Oh, by the way, the latest one was 17 pages. Instead of issuing a health alert on the myocarditis they knew was impacting young men, early in 2021, instead of issuing an alert on the Health Alert Network, they developed 17 pages of talking points. This was given to the public under a FOIA request. They had to go to court. They've got a new way of redacting. They don't black things out. They just give you white pages. So you don't even know what they have redacted. So again, I've issued a subpoena now to cover the information I've requested in 70 oversight letters. My question to you is, as Secretary of HHS, will you honor these requests from Congress, and will you make HHS transparent?
Yeah, my approach to HHS, as I said before, Senator, is radical transparency. Democrats and Republicans ought to be able to come in and get information that was generated at taxpayer expense, that is owned by the American taxpayer. They shouldn't get redacted documents. Public health agencies should be transparent. And if we want Americans to restore trust in the public health agencies, we need transparency. I want to say something about what you first said. When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis?
Okay. you know, I just, the main reason I wanted to listen to part of what Senator Ron Johnson said there is that I wanted to go over what he's talking about with referring to hostility from the left, which is rich, hostility from the left, and then talking about coming together. Can't we agree on this thing? And it's just ridiculous because, you know, he talks about divisiveness and things like that in our politics. Republicans are the most divisive of any political alignment, I think, in this country. When you compare the divisiveness of Republicans to the divisiveness of Democrats and libertarians, I guess, if you count libertarians in the fucking Green Party or whatever, there's not even anything close to the Republicans. The Republicans divide on LGBTQ issues, i.e. if you reference like grooming, where they just make up bullshit about grooming. They talk about men playing women's sports. That's divisive because those things are happening at an almost nonsensical, like a not even remotely registering scale. There's so few examples of the things that they allege are happening that it's crazy. But if you look at the number of pastors, ministers, and bishops and priests that end up on sex offenders lists because they're you know, doing shit with kids, you know, it's an enormous list. And I would love to know how many of those are registered Republicans. So sounds to me like it's a bit of a projection on their part. So then you have climate change. They deny that it's even a real thing, that it's a hoax, even though we see worsening hurricanes and just general natural disasters each year. As a result, you had record-breaking drought in California, caused some of the worst fires that the LA area, actually the state's ever seen, let alone the LA area. And Trump's bitching about them not turning water on because of some fish, which is just has zero logical connection to what's going on in the Palisades as far as their fires. By the way, I guess I think Aaron Parnas reported that the fires are 100% contained in the Los Angeles area. So that's great news that the fires are contained. Means that they shouldn't be too concerned with them breaking out again and damaging more homes, taking more lives. The 2020 election. I mean, need I say more? The Republicans have been absurdly divisive because, again, Trump's hard red line is that you can't say that he lost the 2020 election. Nobody can, not even him, right? He's admitted to it like one time, and I don't even know if that was intentional. Like, I think it was an accident that he admitted to it. So that you look at all these hearings where people where the Democrats are asking people, like asking Kash Patel, asking I think Tulsi Gabbard, a number of these nominees have been asked who won the 2020 election or you know, whatever, and they'll say things like, well, Joe Biden was sworn in as the president. It's like, no, you're like, they can't say who. Oh, Pam Bondi, that was the other one. Pam Bondi, that's right. They couldn't really say who won the 2020 election because Trump doesn't like when you talk about who won the 2020 election. It's despicable. And they want to, they're remaining, that's demonstrating their loyalty to him quite literally. So it's a 2020 election, and then weaponization of government institutions. There's zero evidence that Joe Biden told Merrick Garland go after Trump. Zero evidence that ever happened, that any such meeting ever occurred. And yet Republicans just assume that that's what's going on because, again, it's projection. It's because Trump literally would do that. He said in an interview not too long ago where he said he would call his AG to go indict somebody or something. And he said, you'll find something, right? Tax evasion or whatever, something they may not even be guilty of. So who knows? And then COVID and vaccines. Just an absurd thing. You know, Republicans started out basically trying to pretend that COVID wasn't a real thing, and that lockdowns were worse than just letting the virus spread like wildfire. And you know, that it was going to go away by spring, and that ivermectin was a good treatment for it, blah, 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 blah. Just pure insanity. They've been super divisive on COVID, especially, and then vaccines, where they, you know, even though vaccines are Trump's, baby because of Project Warp Speed. A lot of Republicans recognize that a bunch of MAGA and a bunch of those people don't like QAnon, and MAGA people don't like the vaccines, especially the COVID ones. So they have to take this weird stance against them to be happy with their voters. But then they have to commend Project Warp Speed because that's Trump's baby. They literally talk out of both sides of their mouth on vaccines now, and it's just insanity. So when he talks about divisiveness, the Republicans are worse than any other party out there, period. It's just ridiculous. I hate it so much. Anyway, we'll go ahead and watch here Elizabeth Warren ask him some questions next.
And that is that Big Pharma has too much power in Washington. You said that President Trump asked you to, quote, clean up corruption and conflicts. Sounds great. You've said that you will, quote, slam shut the revolving door between government agencies and the companies they regulate. That also sounds great. So here's an easy question. Will you commit that when you leave this job, you will not accept compensation from a drug company, a medical device company, a hospital system, or a health insurer for at least 4 years, including as a lobbyist or a board member?
Can you just repeat the last part of the question? Can I commit
You're
to
not going
what?
to take money from drug companies in any way, shape, or form.
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, yeah, I'm
You're the
happy
one-
to commit to that.
Okay, good. That's what I figured. I said it's an easy question to start with. And I think you're right on this
I don't
question.
think any of them want to give me money, by the way.
Right. Let's keep going. You're right because to say yes, because every American has the right to know that every decision you make as our #1 health officer is to help them and not to make money for yourself in the future. So I want to talk more about money. I'm looking at your paperwork right now. In the past 2 years, you've raked in $2.5 million from a law firm called Wisner Baum. You go online, you do commercials to encourage people to sign up with Wisner Baum to join lawsuits against vaccine makers. And for everyone who signs up, you personally get paid. And if they win their case, you get 10% of what they win. So if you bring in somebody who gets $10 million, you walk away with $1 million. Now, you just said that you want the American people to know you can't be bought. Your decisions won't depend on how much money you could make in the future. You won't go to work for a drug company after you leave HHS. But you and I both know there's another way to make money. So, Mr. Kennedy, will you also agree that you won't take any compensation from any lawsuits against drug companies while you are secretary and for 4 years afterwards?
Well, I'll certainly commit to that while I'm secretary. But I do want to clarify something because you're making me sound like a shill. I put
You're the
together
one who
that
got-
case. I did the Science Day presentation to the judge on that case to get it into court, the Daubert hearing.
Mr. Kennedy, it's just a really simple question.
Yeah,
You've taken in $2.5 million. I want to know if you will commit right now that not only will you not go to work for drug companies, you won't go to work suing the drug companies and taking your rake out of that while you're a secretary and for 4 years after. It's just
I'll commit to not taking any fees from drug companies while I'm secretary.
No. I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
No,
and I'm
you
not
can
going to agree
sue
to that,
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So
That's
let's do
definitely
a
not
quick
what she's
count
asking.
here of how, as Secretary of HHS, if you get confirmed, you could influence every one of those lawsuits. Well, let me start the list. You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead, something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint
I
people
don't
to the
understand that.
CDC vaccine panel who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine panel to remove a particular vaccine from the vaccine schedule. You could remove vaccines from special compensation programs which would open up manufacturers to mass torts. You could make more injuries eligible for compensation even if there is no causal evidence. You could change vaccine court processes to make it easier to bring junk lawsuits. You could turn over FDA data to your friends at the law firm, and they could use it however it benefited them. You could change vaccine labeling. You could change vaccine information rules. You could change which claims are compensated in the vaccine injury compensation program. There's a lot of ways that you can influence those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS, and I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as Secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You and I, you have said
You're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Health. Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS,
maybe somebody who watches the VOD here, or, you know, if there's anybody watching live, I don't know, but maybe someone else could shed some light on this. But I would imagine that he can sue these drug companies as HHS, but he would be suing them. He would be suing them as the U.S. government, as the United Health and Safety Services, or whatever. As the Department of Health and Human Services is how he would be suing drug companies if they break the law, if they violate regulations, things of that nature. That's what it sounds like to me, is maybe where they're missing each other here. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that she's not saying he can't sue them as in his role as HHS, as Secretary of HHS. What I think she's saying is you shouldn't be suing companies privately for vaccines that you're also regulating as HHS. There's a conflict there, and he's just either he's not getting it, or he's just trying to throw off the scent. It could be both. To some degree, it could be the latter. I think if it's the latter, that's pretty scary. So
Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. I will do that. The only thing I want is good science, and that's it.
How about then say you won't make money off what you do as Secretary of HHS?
Before we go to Senator Tillis, I think it would be important for me to make it very clear that Mr. Kennedy has gone through the same Office of Government Ethics process as every single other nominee in the Finance Committee this year and in previous administrations. In addition to listing his assets, including the items that you've identified, he has signed an ethics letter that has been reviewed by the Office of Government Ethics concerning any possible conflict in light of its functions and the nominee's proposed duties. And we have a letter from the Office of Government Ethics that he hasn't complied completely with all applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest.
Mr. Chairman, point of information here. Have we had a single nominee come through who's made $2.5 million off suing one of the entities that it would be regulating and plans to keep getting a take of every lawsuit in the future? Have we had that before?
I haven't reviewed the past documentation of every other nominee's financial interests, and so no. But I know that every single time we get a nominee, their financial interests are attacked. That's why we have the Office of Government Ethics. That's why they've reviewed everything that's in his record, and that's why he has even, I think, and I don't know that I want to ask him to get into it, but he has listed his assets and has gone through a discussion of the responsibilities under our ethics laws and has complied with all of those requirements. Senator,
We don't care about rich people in government. It's the conflict that she's pointing out, dude. And if the Department of Government or the whatever ethics that he's talking about, if they reviewed it, it's like I don't know that that's a great standard. But okay, so where are we going next?
Thank you so much, Chairman Crapo and Ranking Member Wyden. It's great to be here. Mr. Kennedy, welcome. Welcome to you and to your family. Thank you for meeting with me a few days ago. I'd like to follow up, if I might, with some of the issues that we discussed in my office. I want to talk to you first about the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I'm proud of the work that the CDC does, proud that it's located in Georgia with more than 10,000 employees in my state. If confirmed, you would be the cabinet secretary over the CDC, representing HHS. It's about 29% of the federal budget. CDC is a part of that. Do you agree that the CDC's work is critical to Georgia, critical for our country, and the health of the entire world?
Yes, Senator.
Senator Isaacson, my Republican predecessor, would have agreed with that. Bless his memory. He was a fierce advocate for the CDC, as am I. The CDC is an agency filled with hard-working, dedicated public health servants. They wake up every single day working to keep us safe. I think we don't think often enough about their work, because it's easy not to celebrate the folks who are protecting you from that which doesn't appear because of the work that they're doing. So grateful for the work that the CDC employees do. Some of them are members of my church. I saw that deep commitment firsthand when I visited the CDC just last summer. Mr. Kennedy, you have compared the CDC's work to Nazi death camps. You've compared it to sexual abusers in the Catholic Church. You've also said that many of them belong, this is a direct quote, many of them belong in jail. For me, those are disturbing characterizations of the CDC workers that I know who are trying to keep the American public safe every single day. And as you are presented as the nominee for this position, I need to know, do you stand by those statements that you made in the past, or do you retract those previous statements?
Senator, I don't believe that I ever compared the CDC to Nazi death camps. I support the CDC. My job is not to dismantle or harm the CDC. My job is to empower the scientists, if I'm privileged to be confirmed.
So you retract those statements?
I'm not retracting it. I never said it.
Well, actually, I have a transcript
Of me saying that it's a Nazi death camp?
Let me read your words. It says that the institution CDC and the vaccine program, is your description of their work, is more important than the children that it's supposed to protect. And it's the same reason we had a pedophile scandal in the Catholic Church. It's because people were able to convince themselves that the institution of the church was more important than these little boys and girls who were being raped. That's pretty provocative language. You said in another statement to me, this is like Nazi death camp. I mean, let me finish. I'm just reading your words. I mean, what happened to these kids? 1 in 31 boys in this country, their minds are being robbed from them.
Yeah, I was not comparing the CDC to Nazi death camps. I was comparing the injury rate to our children to other atrocities. And I wouldn't compare, of course, the CDC to Nazi death camps to the extent that any statement that I made has been interpreted that way. Yeah, I don't agree with that. In 2003, the United States Congress Government Oversight Committee ended an over a year investigation of the CDC and used almost that same language. They said that the CDC, just one division, one branch, the Immunization Safety Office, had put institutional self-interest and pharmaceutical profits ahead of the welfare and the health of American children. So that was a conclusion by Congress. And I repeated
Well,
that.
I'm asking you because you're the nominee for HHS. It sounds like you stand by those statements.
Senator, my objective is to support the CDC. There's nothing I'm going to do that is going to harm CDC. I want to make sure that our science is gold standard science,
So,
and it's free from that same government oversight investigation committee found that the panels, the ACIP panel within CDC, I think 97% of the people on it had conflicts. I don't believe that that's right. I think we need to end those conflicts and make sure that scientists are doing unobstructed science.
so I want to enter this statement, by the way, into the record without objection.
Without objection.
Last week, the White House gagged HHS and the CDC, preventing them from communicating all important public health information to anyone, including all of our allies, including our allies in the United States and global disease prevention. Can you just answer yes or no, because I'm running out of time? Do you agree with that action?
I was not consulted on it, but that's pretty much standard
I'm asking
operating
you,
procedure for incoming administration.
So you agree with the action that gagged HHS and CDC from communicating important public health information to the
That
public?
directive made sure that no
You say,
public health, that only non-essential travel and mass communications were temporarily suspended pending the confirmation of a new HHS secretary. This is standard operating procedure for every administration.
I get it. I don't think what we've seen over the last several days is standard operation for new administrations. I think we're seeing some unprecedented actions, but you agree with it. Last night, members of the CDC, along with other federal employees, were actually invited to resign, these buyouts. And I got text messages and folks I know work from the CDC, for the CDC, that do this important work, who got that note. And it's really important because my experience is that when you send out that kind of note, the folks who resign are the folks who you least likely want to see resign. They got other options. They're gifted folks. They got a lot of expertise. They have options. A lot of them are doing this work because of their patriotism, because of their commitment. Do you agree with the buyouts that were presented to CDC employees just last night?
I agree. At the vast majority of the scientists and experts at CDC are patriots and good government servants.
Can you tell me yes or no?
I don't think anybody's going to resign who's committed to making America healthy again.
Can you just answer yes? Okay, you agree with the buyouts. In our meeting, I asked you to confirm your support for the Affordable Care Act. You also mentioned that you and President Trump want to fix the ACA by making premiums more affordable. Can you answer me yes or no, as I don't have a lot of time? Did you know that tax credits that help families afford health insurance and save Georgians an average of $531 per month per person are set to expire at the end of the year? Did you know that?
I do.
We need to move on.
Do you support Congress extending these tax credits so that Americans can continue to afford health care?
Congress has to make its own decisions about that. My instructions from President Trump.
Mr. Chairman, you're saying I'm running out of time, but I'm having a lot of trouble getting the witness to answer yes or no to a yes or no question. And I've got one more question.
You're almost at 9 minutes, sir.
Well, I need him to answer yes or no. Yes or no? Do you
I'm not going
support?
to answer yes or no to a question that's not susceptible to an honest yes or no answer.
I can't
We
get an
need to
answer.
move on.
I think that the fact that you find it difficult to answer basic questions is deeply troubling for me as you present yourself as a nominee to run HHS. Thank you so very much.
Senator Smith.
I've been in courts all over the country and prosecutors.
Mr. Chairman, you told me I'm out of time, and the witness continues to filibuster even after I said I'm done.
Senator Smith.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, and welcome, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, pretty good frustration there. I don't know. Warnock had brought up some things that I hadn't heard. I definitely didn't hear about his comments related to vaccine injury rate of kids and what Nazi death camps. It's fucking some weird shit. Odd comparison at the very least.
Situation when these procedures have to be deployed.
Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Kennedy, I wanted to ask about your role in the 2019 measles outbreak in Samoa. In July 2018, 2 children died immediately after receiving a measles vaccine that nurses had mistakenly mixed with a muscle relaxant. The nurses get charged with manslaughter, but vaccination rates go down. I asked you about this in my office. You told me flatly that your visit to Samoa had nothing to do with vaccinations. We now know that's not true. I have the documentation. You met with the Prime Minister. You talked about vaccinations. You met with an anti-vaccine influencer who described the meeting as, quote, profoundly monumental for this movement. So what happens? Vaccinations go down. There's a measles outbreak and children start dying. But you double down. You didn't give up. Just 4 days after the Prime Minister declared a state of emergency, 16 people already dead, you sent a letter to him promoting the idea that the children had died not from measles, but from, quote, defective vaccine. You launched the idea that a measles vaccine caused these deaths. You are a very influential man. In fact, you are called the leader of the disinformation dozen. UNICEF and WHO, the World Health Organization, investigated this. They say the claims are false. It is not biologically possible what you claimed. And yet, ultimately, more than 70 people died because they didn't get vaccines. So my question is, do you accept even a scintilla, just even a sliver of responsibility for the drop in vaccinations and the subsequent deaths of more than 70 people? Anything you do differently?
No, absolutely not. There were 2 incidents in which children died in 2015 and again in 2008. 2015, it was from the measles vaccine. That's what the New Zealand General Hospital found. The government of Samoa banned the measles vaccine after the 2018. I arrived in July of the next year after the ban had been in place for a year.
Mr.
And the
Chairman,
measles,
understanding that you wanted to hold this to a minute and that I don't get to present all the facts and documentation I've got, how about if we just decide to make entries for the record on exactly what the record shows about Mr. Kennedy's participation? And I think he's answered the yes or no question. He takes no responsibility.
Senator Warren, we will do that.
Differently.
And Mr. Kennedy, and to all the senators, every senator knows that following this hearing, they will be able to ask you questions off the record, and you will be able to put answers back onto the record. So please give that answer. I apologize that we're shutting you off for giving a full response right now.
That's so fucked up. So, I mean, I'm not familiar with the facts of what answers he was giving in 2015 and 2018, but him getting there in 2019 and, taking it sounds like the deaths of 2 infants right away and running with the measles vaccine is what's killing these kids. And then basically him making that statement, it sounds like others were part of the effort to spread that disinformation, because we've known he's been kind of, this not anti-vax weirdo for quite a while now. And the thing is that, if you take that and run with it, just Captain confirmation bias, it's no wonder that Trump likes him so much. When you have that situation playing out, you bear responsibility. The vaccination rate goes down. You have a measles outbreak. I think Warren said 16 children died, but I want to say that this sounds like the total number of people who were killed by that or basically died of measles. It sounds like 70 people in American Samoa, or in I don't know what if she said American Samoa, but and he referenced New Zealand as well. I don't know if that's separate from what Warren was talking about. I'm not really sure, but that's pretty fucking insane. And as she pointed out, he did not take any responsibility for that. Which is just bonkers, dude. Just insanity. Okay, what was our next one here?
Sorry. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, this was great.
Mr. Kennedy, I was struck by your comments during our meeting last week.
What?
I was struck by your comments in our meeting last week where you made it abundantly clear to me that you intended to clean house of the professional scientists at the National Institutes of Health, which is headquartered in the state of Maryland and employs thousands of hardworking Marylanders. I, for the record, believe in scientists and I believe in doctors and I trust them over politicians without medical degrees. You talked about bad science and bad scientists, and in fact, you specifically said to me in response to my question that you intend to replace the bad scientist with the good scientist. And so I want to ask you, in your opinion, what makes a scientist or a doctor qualified to serve at the National Institutes of Health?
A scientist who's devoted to empirical methodology, to evidence-based science, scientists who understand the importance of replication, the importance of publishing raw data and being open and transparent about it, the importance of publishing peer review. We have, NIH has overseen over the past several years the precipitous decline in American health. There's 91,000 people at HHS, and are you suggesting that some of them should not be held responsible for that decline? They were in charge of protecting our health.
Let me just insert here.
Let me just finish.
But let me just say this, because I only have 3 minutes left. I don't set the rules here, but I ask the questions. And the question is really whether you intend, as you said, to substitute essentially your judgment for the judgment of these professional scientists and doctors.
I'm not going to substitute my judgment for
She shouldn't
science.
let him
Of
filibuster.
course, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, listen, the New York Times just did an article last week talking about the fraud, the 20-year fraud, 800 fraudulent studies produced by NIH on amyloid plaques and not allowing any other hypothesis about the cause of Alzheimer's
Well, how
to be
will you
explored.
decide, Mr. Kennedy, which scientists
The ones
are
who
bad
are-
scientists?
the ones
Are
who-
they the ones who disagree with you?
The ones who are corrupt, the ones who have been doing science like the amyloid plaque studies that were fraudulent.
Well,
We
these
should
doctors,
not.
let me ask you a question. Do you have a medical degree?
Do I know?
Okay, let me go to the next question. The Heritage Fund has compiled a watch list of federal employees to go after federal staff. Is there a watch list for federal staff at HHS?
Not that I know of.
Have you or has anyone in the administration developed a list of career scientists or federal staff that you would target for termination?
Not that I know of.
And let me just ask you another question. Now, your failed presidential campaign has been raising money to try and cover your debts. And you were questioned about this yesterday and failed to answer a question that Senator Warren asked you. And so I want to ask you again regarding these emails that you have sent to raise money. How much has your presidential campaign made fundraising off of this administration's complete disregard for the workforce at HHS?
Excuse me? I didn't hear the question. The last part.
How much money has your presidential campaign made off of fundraising, off of this administration's complete disregard for the workforce at HHS?
Zero.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record 2 emails from this week and the week before regarding fundraising that you are currently doing through your presidential campaign.
Without objection.
And finally, I want to ask you, I have you said you were on a show on February 26, 2021, an interview with Dr. Judy Mikovits, where you said the following, and I quote, "We should not be giving Black people the same vaccine schedule that's given to whites because their immune system is better than ours." Can you please explain what you meant?
There's a series of studies, I think most of them by Poland, that show that to particular antigens that blacks have a much stronger reaction. There's differences in reaction to different products by different races.
So I have 17 seconds left. Let me just ask you then. So what different vaccine schedule would you say I should have received? What different vaccine schedule should I have received?
I mean, the Poland article suggests that blacks need fewer antigens than
This is so
you get the
dangerous.
same measles vaccine. but
Mr. Kennedy, with all due respect, that is so dangerous. Your voice would be a voice that parents would listen to. That is so dangerous. I will
With
be
the
voting
truth
against
is
your nomination because
science.
your views are dangerous to our state and to our country.
I mean, do you think science is dangerous, Senator? This is published, peer-reviewed studies.
I yield.
Senator.
It's insanity. My God, that's just insanity. Even just his use of the term to describe the people he's talking about.